Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. Today we're going to be finally taking another look at our Prank-Kids deck. It's been forever since I've actually played this deck. Ever since pretty much the start of the new season. You know, we've been busy with climbing up to Diamond, and then after that the new cards came out, and it's just like, I don't know, I guess on the channel it's not even really been, it's probably been about 2 weeks, well I guess at the time of recording this anyway, since I've had Prank-Kids on the channel, but it just feels like it's been too long. So I definitely wanted to come back to Prank-Kids, especially as with many decks that I'm updating. We need to include good old Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer into the build. Obviously this deck was already playing Vert Anaconda beforehand, so DPE is a very natural fit. Not just this engine, but also the upcoming Adventure engine, which is likely coming out in about a month when the Duel Pass expires. That will be another update to this deck, as that will also provide a lot of power to the deck, definitely for sure. So, but in the meantime, the deck is still very, very good, and I'm still having a lot of fun with it. Prank-Kids is one of those decks that, like, I just always, I don't know, it just sparks joy, you know? It's always a fun deck to play. The updates that we've made to this build are pretty similar to a lot of the other updates we've made to other decks, not only just including DPE, but also some of the tech choices that we are now running as a result. As always, let's go ahead and run through the list card by card, and then we'll go ahead and talk about some card choices, and then of course we've got some games to show you guys as well. So, we have 3 Prank-Kids Fansies, 3 Maxx, 3 Prank-Kids Dropsies, 3 Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, 2 Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansion, 3 Prank-Kids Lampsies, 1 Destiny Hero Celestial, 2 Prank-Kids Rocksies, 1 Destiny Hero Dasher, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Instant Fusion, 1 Thunder Dragon Fusion, 2 Fusion Destiny, 3 Prank-Kids Place, 1 Prank-Kids Pranks, 2 Call by the Grave, 2 Prank-Kids Pandemonium, 3 Crossout Designator, and 2 Infinite Impermanence. Down here in the extra deck, we've got 1 Prank-Kids Rocket Ride, 1 Prank-Kids Weather Washer, 1 Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, 1 Prank-Kids Battle Butler, 1 Totally Awesome, 3 Prank-Kids Meow Meow Moo, 2 Prank-Kids Dodo Doodle Doo, 1 Prank-Kids Bow Wow Bark, 1 Predaplant Vert Anaconda, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Prank-Kids Rip Roarin' Roaster, and then finally 1 Access Code Talker. So, extra deck isn't really that different. I think we were just playing like a Nightmare Phoenix, which I was playing kind of in place of a second Battle Butler, and then we just dropped that Nightmare Phoenix for the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. If you're already playing 2 Battle Butler, I guess now might be the time to go down to 1, or maybe, I don't know, Rip Roarin' Roaster is pretty good. I definitely wouldn't take that out. I don't know, it's interesting. I honestly think the second Battle Butler is good, but not necessary. There's never really, I've yet to encounter a situation playing this deck where I felt I needed the second Battle Butler. There was one time where mine got destroyed and I wanted to go into a second one. There was one scenario, but then I was able to Prank-Kids Pranks it back into the extra deck. So, I can see why a second one is good, but even if I had to, that would probably be what I dropped for Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. I don't know, I'd have to think about it more. But, yeah, so then as far as the main deck itself, I mean, our core is still the same, right? We're still, mainly just relying on our Prank-Kids monsters. Roxy's now at 2, but we were already playing 2 copies, before that change came anyway. And then, as we all know, this was not a Prank-Kids hit. This was an Adamantipator hit. But, doesn't really affect this deck too much, as 2 tended to be optimal even before the ban list, or they got simied on the new ban list there. Let's see, we are playing the Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansions, as we are doing with plenty of other decks nowadays. Yeah, this card is just still really solid. I've been including it in pretty much every deck now. As I mentioned in plenty of other profiles leading up to this, it's just so good against not only Destroy Phoenix Enforcer and a couple of the newer cards that have come out, but it's even just, in general, against the meta, it's just good. One of the more common things to hit with it isn't even Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, although that is actually a very common thing to hit with it. But another really common thing is Called By. Ghost Belle being able to act as like hand trap insurance in that regard. We're still rocking 3 Crossout Designator in this deck because we are, particularly vulnerable to hand traps, but especially Ash Blossom. We definitely need a way to stop Ash Blossom. So yeah, in addition to Call By, we're still rocking the 3 Crossouts. Crossout Designator also getting a fair bit better ever since the new update hit, because a lot of the decks are now playing Fusion Destiny, so that's one very common card that you can now hit with Crossout Designator. And also, just again, it's good for just hand traps in general. Ideally, I would like to be playing maybe, I don't know, one or two other kind of generic. Like, I'd like to be playing another Nibiru in this build. I had 2 Nibiru before, but as with a lot of the decks that I was playing 2 Nibiru, and I'm finding that cutting one of them in order to make room for some of the newer stuff is often needed, because the second Nibiru is nice, but it is ultimately a flex spot in almost any deck. I think there are some decks that maybe you still want 2 Nibiru at a little bit of a higher priority, but this was not one of them. So I did go down to 1 Nibiru, but you know, obviously that's still fine with like the crossouts and stuff, and just using it in general. I mean, yeah, like I said, otherwise our game plan is still mostly the same here. Really, this is one of those decks where, unlike like Trizu, for example, where we incorporate DPE into our regular combo lines, I find that with Prank-Kids, DPE is a little bit more of like you either go into it if you have Fusion Destiny, or if your plays get interrupted, then you can just go into Vert and then go into the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. Because, you know, obviously in order to get the Prank-Kids effects, you need to obviously summon a Prank-Kids monster. So yeah, going into Vert Anaconda with Prank-Kids does not lead you to summon more Prank-Kids. So in order to keep our plays going, we're still having to mostly do the same combo lines. But again, unlike, for example, Tri-Brigade Zodiac, where now instead of incorporating like Appaloosia into our combo lines, we're doing Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer instead. Let's see, I'm just taking one last look over the list here, making sure there isn't anything I wanted to cover, anything I missed. No, I mean, like I said, the build still plays fairly similarly. Terraforming was another card that came out. I did really like having just an extra Prank-Kids body, well, an extra searcher for place for an extra Prank-Kids body, but again, ultimately just, you know, in order to make room for the new engine, it was one of the more flexible cards that just came out, so. Oh, the other ones that I really wanted to add, that's right, were Feather Duster and or Lightning Storm. I don't know, I in combo-based decks, I really like having one of those sources of back row removal. But Prank-Kids is kind of unique in that we do have Reborn Roaster. The problem is, though, like, the reasons, or rather the scenarios where Lightning Storm and Feather Duster are really good are going second. Reborn Roaster doesn't do a whole lot for clearing back row going second. I mean, I've kind of considered cutting one of the crossouts, but 3 crossout is so good in this deck. I've kind of considered cutting, I don't know, even maybe like a C or a Nibiru. I don't know about a C. I don't know. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments about maybe cutting like an Imperm or something. What do you think could come out to maybe include a Feather Duster or a Lightning Storm? Because I would really like to have at least one of those cards in this deck. I was also thinking maybe Monster Reborn, but that's also pretty useful for comboing sometimes too. I don't know, we'll figure it out. But yeah, again, I would love to hear from you guys, as I always love to hear from you guys, but especially on that matter, what card do you think could maybe again come out for Feather Duster or Lightning Storm? But alright, now I think that's everything I wanted to go over. So without further ado, let us take a look at some gameplay. Alright, this first game we're going to be watching is against Sword Soul Tenyi, so always nice to get a game in against the new deck on the block. And you see we open a really solid going hand. We open a really solid hand, whether you go first or second. This is actually a pretty good hand. I'm going to lead with the place, and I successfully beat the Ash. Now, I did debate if I wanted to Crossout Designator here, because adding the extra Prank-Kids monster off of place does actually matter. This isn't just bait. There are different combos you can do based on whether you have 1 or 2 different Prank-Kids monsters in your opening hand. And I did stop and think about this for quite a while, but I ultimately decided to let this resolve, because I already have plays with the Prank-Kids Dropsies here, and I want to be able to counter another hand trap, like potentially a Maxx or something if I need to. Because again, even though basically, this is the difference of setting up a Reborn Roaster plus Battle Butler or just a Battle Butler, whether you have, you know, 2 Prank-Kids monsters or 1. And again, ultimately, I just decided that, you know, the 1 card combo was fine here, and we can just save the crossout for a potential future hand trap there. So that's why I let this Ash resolve here. Alright, we're going to do the aforementioned 1 card combo. I am going to also be finally putting out a combo guide. I know I've talked about doing the Prank-Kids combo guide forever now. Yeah, opponent does have the Cypher Gear Gamma, which is a bit unfortunate. I don't actually have that in my deck to counter it with Crossout Designator. We can at least cycle the Maxx here. I actually kind of debated keeping the Maxx for plays on my opponent's turn, but I thought maybe cycling it result in a better option there. We draw another Dropsies, which is like, nah, whatever, but we'll set the Imperm and the Designator and pass. But yes, that combo guide should be coming out very, very soon for this deck. I do still plan on making that. So opponent's going to activate the Lightning Storm here. Now here's something interesting, right? I don't actually have a Lightning Storm in my deck to call, but you saw when I pointed up there that I actually do still chain and I call Fusion Destiny here. Because here's what I'm thinking, right? My opponent's really low on resources, and actually at this point I don't even know that they're playing Sword Sultani. I've only seen the Ash, the Gamma, the Driver, and the Lightning Storm. This could realistically still be just about any deck. So knowing that it could still be just about any deck, and knowing my opponent is low on resources, I decide, you know what, I'm going to chain this Designator to the Storm, and I'm going to call Fusion Destiny. That way, because that's like the most likely thing my opponent could have in this scenario that would completely mess me up with what little resources they have, and as opposed to what I have. I might still be able to do something about it with this Imperm, but I might as well just, you know, stop it at the source. So, again, I don't know that my opponent has Fusion Destiny, but I have a suspicion that they might. And opponent does just pass after that, so that does also kind of lend in itself for me to think that, you know, maybe my opponent did have it. We actually talked like another Crossout Designator, which is really good, more hand trap, you know, disruption there as we go into our plays. I'm just going to summon this Dropsies and more or less pick up where I left off of the combo last turn. Opponent does have another Ash here, and this time there's no reason for me not to Crossout Designator here, even though it's on the Dodo Dodo Do and not the what do you call it, the Prank-Kids Dropsies there. Yeah, I'm still just going to go ahead and cross that Designator because my opponent's only got one other card in hand, which again, I don't know. I think it very well could have been Fusion Destiny. I think just again in a vacuum like that, just especially in that scenario, with it being such a generic card and my opponent playing such excuse me, generic stuff. Yeah, I figured there's kind of like no reason not to call it. But that is another reason why I would like to have Feather Duster or but realistically, or Lightning Storm in the deck, is because it's not uncommon for Prank-Kids, even though your combo deck, to still have a lot of back row, and being able to cross out Designator, you know, either Storm or Feather Duster to keep your other back row safe would also be a nice option. I've done it before in previous iterations of Prank-Kids, but alright, let's go ahead and look at the next game here. Okay, so this next game is going to be against the Sacred Beast deck, which I think this is actually the first time I've ever played against one. Like with all the new like structure deck support and all that. I say new, it's still new to me. Opponent's going to take the first turn here. We do open with Maxx, so we do at the very least have that going for us. They start with Piri Ree's map, and this really confused me at first because I was like, is this Numeron? But they went first, and then they played the Dark Beckoning Beast, and I realized, oh yeah, this is yeah, Sacred Beast got a whole bunch of, they got their own structure deck, that's right. Here comes the opening of the Spirit Gates, which is like, this is one of those decks where, you know, I had to stop and read like literally everything just to figure out what it all did. Alright, I'm going to chain the other Maxx in response to them. I'm trying to special summon a monster here, but my opponent has the Ash, so that's unfortunate, but it is what it is, you know. At the very least, it's not going to be, it's one less Ash for them to use during my turn, so there isn't that at the very least. I kind of figured Sacred Beast wouldn't, like, go off too hard here. I think they do only end up doing, yeah, like 2 special summons, but it's still pretty, you know, a decently scary setup. They get to draw 2 cards with the Fallen Paradise. This card is nuts, by the way. Letting them draw 2 cards once per turn and also protecting their Sacred Beast, which... This was a classic case of me... Well, this will come up later, but, you know, I read this card and I was like, you know, your opponent cannot target with card effects, and it lets them draw 2, but I kind of glossed over the fact when I first read this that it also prevents their Sacred Beast from being destroyed by card effects. Again, that'll come up here in a bit, but yeah, we're just going to go ahead and, you know, activate the place, do the Prank-Kids Lampsies. Oh, I actually did the Instant Fusion here as well in order to try to play around... Oh wait, did I activate the Instant Fusion? Because I don't actually see the Fusion monster. Hang on a sec. What did I do with this Instant Fusion? Oh, that's right. I tried to activate it, but they negated with the Skyfire. That's right, because I wanted to bait the Skyfire out to keep, you know, the Crossout and the Call-By live. So that's why Instant Fusion. That's right. And sure enough, the Crossout does come in handy here as my opponent activates Infinite Impermanence. I'm going to go ahead and cross it out. I'm fine using it here because I've got a Call-By in case my opponent has an actual hand trap, and I don't suspect they're going to Nibiru or something because, of course, they've got the Haman on their board. But yep, since we've crossed out their imperm there, we can continue to make our plays. I'm going to sack the Dodo Doodle Doo. I've already got the pranks, so I'm just going to add back a couple of Prank-Kids monsters here. Then use the pranks to summon the token to keep comboing off. Again, we'll go into more detail about how this all works in the combo guide. It looks pretty confusing, and sometimes it can be. Honestly, this is actually one of the combo decks where you do really have to like keep in mind which line you're going for, because the order that you do things in will vary slightly depending on what play you're going for, but it will like really matter. Yeah, so I decided to end up going for the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer here. Basically my goal is to kind of just pick apart my opponent's board here, and I intended to start by running over their Almirage, but then, okay, because yeah, I wanted to explain that weird turn there, because that looked really odd. This was a result of me not reading my opponent's cards carefully enough, and not being familiar with what the Sacred Beast cards do, so... yeah, I went to go to the battle phase because like, okay, I need to run over the Almirage and I can sack DPE and pop the Haman, right? Well, I failed to realize / remember that if Haman's in defense mode, I have to target with attack, so that's why I went to the battle phase and then didn't attack. So I thought to myself, okay, well, I can use DPE to at least pop Vert in the Haman, right? Well, like I touched on earlier, this is the part where I failed to fully read Fallen Paradise. I thought I couldn't target Haman, and that was it, but no, it turns out you can't target or destroy Haman with card effects, but... I'm not super duper concerned here because we can still, just like I mentioned earlier, kind of pick apart our opponent's board with a DPE here. We'll probably end up taking a bit of damage, mind you, but yeah, it'll still be fine. Also, the nice thing too is my opponent's Piri maps here are doing a toll on their, taking quite a toll on their life points here. My opponent's gonna try to draw 2 more cards with the Ash. I'm definitely just gonna go ahead and Ash here. I decided not to Ash the Piri map specifically so that I could Ash the draws off Fallen Paradise here. Yep, opponent's going to go ahead and get the Raviel at this point, but I'm not really concerned about it. I don't think they're going to be summoning it anyway. Well, actually, they are going to try to summon it. They're going to get the Dark Summoning Beast here. I'm going to use Imperm to try to negate it, but of course my opponent is able to go ahead and negate it with the Cerulean Skyfire. They then summon their, what is it, Raviel, oh, here we go, the Shimmering Scrapper. Yeah, I totally forgot that they made like an alternate Raviel here. But fortunately it doesn't really do anything too scary, so I'm not really super concerned about it. Yeah, I have to get back my Dasher because my opponent, what did they call by? Yeah, they called by my DPE there, so I'm getting Dasher just to kind of like jump block here more or less. Opponent's going to Chaos Summoning Beast. I'll go ahead and call by it to stop it. I actually could have done this last turn. I just kind of failed to really realize it. Again, just, you know, this isn't even really being unfamiliar with the Sacred Beast. I kind of just should have realized that, though. But we at least have it for this turn to stop our opponent from summoning the Raviel that's in their hand here. So, yeah, we can just chump block with the Dasher, like I mentioned earlier. And then we'll just go ahead and pass it back to the... Or rather, we're going to go ahead and get the draw here for a turn. Oh, and I think I also could have Celestialed last turn. And this is another thing I'm still getting used to, is remembering that, oh yeah, I've got the free Pot of Greed in my graveyard when my hand is empty, so... But yeah, we're able to special summon that Fansies because of Dasher's effects during our draw phase, and then we can go ahead and just start going into our combo line. My opponents get pretty low on life points, and all they really have to deal with is this Raviel, which doesn't really do a whole lot as like a quick effect. It doesn't really do anything as a quick effect here, so yeah, I'm not really concerned about it at all. Plan is to either just go into like Nightmare Unicorn or Access Code or something. I think I end up going into Access Code here. Yep, because I'm going to go ahead and discard for Pranks to get a token, link the token and the Dropsies into Bow Wow Bark, and then I'm going to, sorry about that, bump the desk there, and then I'm going to link the Bow Wow Bark and the Dodo Doodle Doo into good old Access Code there. So yeah, this game actually probably could have, you know, ended a little bit sooner, or at the very least gone a little more smoothly had I actually taken the time to fully read all my opponent's cards. But, you know, again, it's not a deck I've encountered before, and also, like, all these cards just have, like, 3 different effects, which is, like, you know, when you're on the fly, it can be hard to kind of absorb it all at once for the first time. I even picked apart the spells and traps before destroying the Ravel, just in case there was another effect I wasn't, like, you know, aware of off the top of my head, or after reading them either, but yeah, we can just go ahead and pick apart our opponent's board, like I mentioned, and then smack him for game with access code. Alright, let's go ahead and watch the next one. Okay, so this next game is going to be against Phantom Knights. I think this was, even though this is the third game I'm showing, I'm pretty sure this was actually my first game picking up this build of the deck, or like testing it out. It was, because I remember my rustiness with this deck kind of comes into play here a bit during this game. I kind of bungle one of the combo lines a bit here. So yeah, we do open with multiple Prank-Kids monsters, so we should be able to set up a Ripborn Roaster and a Battle Butler setup here. But if I remember right, I just kind of end up on like the Roaster and like half the Butler setup. But we'll get into that more as the turn progresses on here. So yep, we're gonna start with going to the Meow Meow Moo and the Doodle Doodle Doo using the Fansies. And this ad here, I think, is actually where I know it is where I bungle, because yeah, I add the pranks instead of the Pandemonium. If you're going for Ripborn Roaster plus a Battle Butler setup, you're supposed to add the Pandemonium there. But then I realized that halfway through, you know, my play, and I was like, oh, I'll just use Doodle Doodle Doo to get the Pandemonium back. It'll work out. But then, yeah, and then I go for the Rocket right here, but it's like, yeah, it just doesn't quite add up. Excuse me, I got the hiccups there for a second. It just doesn't quite add up to the play that I wanted it to. So, yeah, this is definitely a case of do as I say, don't do as I do, you know. But even though we kind of like screwed up the combo line a bit, it's still fine. We're still going to end on a pretty solid board, all in all. I could have actually, and should have actually, set up a DPE here, but at this point when I was playing, I was still trying to figure out if I could still end on Rip Roarin' plus the Battle Butler setup. I think by the point at the time I summoned this Bow Bark, I realized I couldn't. And I should have just gone for the vote here, but I was like, you know what, I can already, you know, I can make the Rip Roarin' Roaster, I'll just do it, why not? It's too bad the Rip Roarin' Roaster doesn't have like a summon animation. I guess Battle Butler does, but I don't know. It'd be cool if Rip Roarin' Roaster did too. Well, even though we didn't get quite the full setup, we do still have the Imperm and an Ash and a Ghost Spell here, so that's pretty nice. Opponent's going to lead with the Toward Scales. I'm going to go ahead and Imperm it here after my opponent pays the cost by discarding, of course. And since they sent the Ancient Cloak, I of course want to Imperm and not Ash, because now when they activate the Ancient Cloak inevitably, that's when I want to go ahead and Ash Blossom. You can't Ghost Spell the Ancient Cloak because Ghost Spell only stops an effect that has banishes from grave, not a cost. We can, however, stop the Called By here, like I mentioned earlier in the deck profile. Ghost Spell here acting as kind of insurance for Ash against the Called By. So that's pretty nice. It's nice to be able to actually counter a Called By sometimes, like just having the option to. Opponent's got the Sukanoko here. They're going to go ahead and pitch the Brigandine in order to summon it. They then get to link away into a presumably, I don't know, they're just going straight into Vert here. I thought they were going to go into their Rusty, or Cherubini into Rusty Bardish, but nope, they just instead go for Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, which is a bit annoying, but yeah, you know, nothing we can't deal with. I actually am really eager to show off my iteration of Phantom Knights here, probably relatively soon on the channel. Because we get to add not only DPE, but another really cool engine that allows our Phantom Knight deck to be even more disgusting than it was before, if you can believe it. So during the end phase here, I'm going to definitely go ahead and use Ripborn Roaster, banishing Meow Meow Moo, and pop my opponent's back row as a droplet, so I'm very glad I did that. And yeah, opponent's DPE is going to come out here again, but I'm not too concerned about it, especially because I just have a straight up Battle Butler set up with the Pandemonium here. I'm going to lead by normal sending the Lampsies to try to bait DPE. Fortunately, my opponent takes the bait there. We can go ahead and use Pandemonium, and I'm not going to actually use it for Battle Butler, even though I just mentioned I could use it for that. But since we put Rocket Ride back, we can actually use it for Rocket Ride again, which is going to enable a lot of plays, especially given that we get to trigger 2 Prank-Kids effects here. And also even chain block with the place, just in case their last card does happen to be an Ash. But, you know, our opponent realizes I have more than enough resources to just go ahead and end the game. So we get to just end the game there. Alright, let's go ahead and watch the next one. Okay, so this game is going to be against a Tenyi Rose deck. Which actually I was thinking, you know, as I was looking at this deck list, you know, it's not too hard for me to make that deck. It's still like, you know, not off the table for me. I won't make a commitment to making it, but it could still very easily happen. Oh yeah, I want to show this game because this is a line that I'll be showing off in the combo video, but I got to actually use it in a live game here, so... well, not a live game, you know what I mean, it's a replay we're watching, but I got to use it live in a game, this combo line. So if you open a Prank-Kids monster plus Instant Fusion, you can actually play around Ash Blossom for your initial Prank-Kids search. Not for the whole turn always, but for at the very least your initial Prank-Kids search, you can actually play around Ash Blossom. So what you do is you summon the Prank-Kids and you activate Instant Fusion like I'm doing here. We're going to use Weather Wash here is what we're going to get with the Instant Fusion. Then we can link those two into Doodle Doodle Doo instead of going into Meow Meow Moo first, because you know, the Dropsies will get chain blocked by the Doodle Doodle Doo. So if your opponent's got Ash, they can Ash the Doodle Doodle Doo here, and you can still actually keep going off, because again, the most important thing is your main deck Prank-Kids monster resolving. Our opponent didn't have Ash here, so it would actually end up being fine, but again, just wanted to point that out, that is something you can do. And it is going to adjust the combo line, but like I said, in my combo guide for Prank-Kids, which again should be coming out very soon after this video, we will go ahead and discuss that in more detail. Alright, we're going to go ahead, and we actually already had the Prank-Kids pranks here, so after adding the Pandemonium with the Doodle Doodle Doo, we can just grab a couple of Prank-Kids back with the second one. The second Doodle Doodle Doo, that is. And then, yep, we're going to go into Bow Wow Bark, trigger our last Prank-Kids here, Rocksies. We've got an extra Lampsies there, so we can just go ahead and banish that. And then, yeah, I can set... This is, again, why I mentioned I wanted to play Harpy's Feather Duster and or Lightning Storm for Crossout, is because, like I said, this is not uncommon for this deck to end up setting a whole bunch of back row, even though we're a combo deck, because Prank-Kids just generates so much advantage. So... Okay, my opponent's gonna... Okay, so it's funny, right? I actually didn't know my opponent was playing the Tenyi Rose deck. I see Vishuda. I'm assuming my opponent's playing Sword Soul here. So as soon as they reveal the Vishuda and activate the effect, I'm immediately going to chain Pandemonium and then Bow Wow Bark in order to make a Battle Butler. Because I know Vishuda can only bounce a card if my opponent controls a non-effect monster, and if I know if they summon this, they're going to then link into Monk of the Tenyi. So I want to chain now, so that way I can get Battle Butler's effect on the resolution of the summon and destroy the Vishuda, send it to the graveyard before they have a chance to get the Monk on board. That way they won't be able to bounce one of my cards. So that's why I'm chaining the way that I am here. And that's why I'm also going to activate Battle Butler's effect right now after all these Prank-Kids effects go off. And then, yep, we have Meow Meow Moo engraved, so we can just go ahead and banish that instead of actually triggering the Battle Butler, which is very nice, because that... I've said this before, Battle Butler is pretty much Zeus. It's only for monsters, but it's only your opponent's monsters, so... yeah, and then of course, because we fused with 3 Prank-Kids, we get to trigger all 3 of them. But when I trigger all 3 of those Prank-Kids, I usually like to get 2 Dropsies to have the option to go into Totally Awesome on the next turn. So my opponent is then going to reveal and then special summon Ashina. Again, I'm just kind of assuming at this point my opponent's playing Tenyi Sword Soul, although, you know, regardless of what Tenyi variant they're playing, Ashina is definitely going to let them combo off. But again, in order to do so, in order to summon Tenyi monster from the deck, they have to have that non-effect monster on the board. So I need to get rid of Ashina on the resolution of the summon specifically, so that way my opponent does not have an opportunity to link it away into the Monk of the Tenyi. That's very, very important, and that's why I'm using my Battle Butler's effects, like, you know, relatively early, and why I'm using them when I'm using them. I wanted to point this out again for this game specifically because after we Battle Butler with Ashina, as you can see, it's actually going to get the concede from our opponent, as they're not going to be able to really continue their plays after that. So that's one of the reasons why, well, it's one of the reasons I like to play a variety of decks, and it's also one of the reasons I like to suggest to you guys, like, hey, even if you're not playing this deck, you know, watching the profiles and the combo guide, still not a bad idea, because if you know how your opponent's deck works, if you know how they combo and what they need to do in order to be able to combo, you can do plays like that that might look a little weird, because again, with Battle Butler, you would think like, oh, I'd want to pop as many monsters as I can with each with each use, but Battle Butler is not just destruction, it's also disruption. And here is a prime example of how we only popped 1 monster each, with each of Battle Butler's uses, but the disruption from it was so great, even though it was 2 1-for-1s, the disruption was so great that it was actually able to just end the game right there. So, knowing thy enemy, also always a very, very important thing to do. Just know thy enemy. Okay, we've got one more game here. Let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, last game here is going to be against an at Ignister deck, which is kind of a fascinating deck to me because I really don't know a whole lot about it. It's actually one I've kind of thought about building because it's relatively cheap, even with my collection. Also, my opponent's name is Uni here, but Uni just makes you think of Final Fantasy X, you know, like Riku calls Yuna Uni. I just love that game, any excuse to think about it. But anyway, so my opponent goes, I wanted to show this game too because of this. I wanted to show off a game of me summoning DPE, of course, but also this is like one of many reasons just why Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer, and Fusion Destiny are so good, right? So I normal summon the Dropsies, and my opponent responds with Maxx here. Now, normally, you look at my hand too, I don't have a Crossout, I don't have a Call By, I don't have an Ash, I don't have anything to stop it. Normally, I'd just have to end here, and then I'd be really sad because I wouldn't have any kind of a setup. I'd have to rely only on my hand traps to hopefully pull me through my opponent's turn. But because we have a Fusion Destiny, and because DPE is a thing, we can make a very powerful boss monster with a very minimal commitment. And it's not just like, you know, it's not just minimal commitment in terms of like main and extra deck space, right? It's minimal commitment in terms of like resources used, only the 1 card, and then also even the number of times we summon in order to do it. Like we're only giving our opponent 1 draw here in order to be able to turbo out a very powerful boss monster. So I mean, I don't need to tell you by this point that Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer is nuts, but this card is the stone cold nuts. it's kind of dumb, but again, you don't need me to tell you that. So opponent's got Signet Mining. It's too bad I don't have an Ash here, because man, that is a juicy card to Ash. So my opponent's actually going to respond with the Infinite Impermanence, or I'm going to activate Infinite Impermanence rather, and then I'm going to respond with Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer to pop it, which might look a little bit weird on the surface, but the reason that I'm doing this is because, you know, it's pretty easy for my opponent to just like banish or remove my DPE. Banish or remove. I'm going to say bounce or remove, or like shuffle back to my extra deck, or just, you know. It's easy for them after negating DPE to then get rid of it without like actually destroying it. So I want to activate the effect now while I can to ensure that it gets destroyed, to then ensure that it will come back during my next turn. So again, this looks a little weird, but that's why I'm responding to the Imperm with DPE's effect here. So my opponent then summons their Achichi at Ignister. Now, as soon as they normal summon here, even though my opponent doesn't apparently, based on what they add, have a way to special summon, because yeah, this doesn't summon itself, I figure, well, I know at Ignister is in Link deck, so I'm going to Maxx it after the normal summon resolves, in case they link for a Link 1, which, oops, sorry, I bumped the desk there again, which sure enough they actually do end up doing. So definitely glad I did that, even though I wasn't super familiar with exactly what all plays Ignister, like how their combos play out. So of course I draw Maxx off Maxx. What else is new? But we do also get an Ash as well, so I'm gonna Ash my opponent's you know, Pakiri here. Again, I don't know that their spell or trap they were gonna add was super essential to the, well, actually, now that I know what their in play was, I know it wasn't essential, but you know, Ash would have been better earlier, but you know, multiple times. It is what it is, though. We'll still stop them from adding it just to stop them from gaining even more advantage there. So definitely looking for my Nibiru here off of the Maxx. Oh, and then I'm going to use Belle to stop them from bringing something back with this Doyon at Ignister here. They just still get to bring something back with Splash Mage, but again, at least we've prevented like a little bit of advantage from them. But as my opponent then goes into Update Jammer here, then I realize like, oh crap, they're trying to OTK me with access code. But then I realize, oh, this is actually fine. I'm gonna live because I have Infinite Impermanence. Because what they're gonna do. So okay, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, yeah, Update Jammer here. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a link material, that link monster can make a second attack during the each battle phase this turn. So basically, yeah, what my opponent's doing here is they're going to set up the 4300 attack access code, clear my board, and then try to smack me twice per game in order to win. But like I said, I have Infinite Impermanence, so I can negate access code's effect and therefore its attack boost. But this is another scenario where I wanted to flip my, toggle this from auto. You know how it's normally on auto? I definitely toggled to on because you can't imperm in response to the activation of access code's effect, but you can change stuff after the resolution of the effect, which is what I'm going to do with this imperm here. They're going to use the access code, like I mentioned. Oh, this is them gaining the attack, not popping just yet. Yep, banish, and then pop, and then, yep, after the effect resolves, then I can imperm and reduce the attack here. And my opponent actually just straight up concedes at that point, because they know now that, like, they can only do 4,600, and they've given me all these draws off of Maxx, so at this point, they can't win on this turn. They're more or less, they're very low on resources, not out of quite, but they're very low on resources, and I have a lot of resources in my hand, so, yep, that does it for the replays there. As always, let us take one last look at the deck before we end off. Okay, everybody, thanks for checking out this profile and those games here with Prank-Kids. Yeah, I love this deck. I've said it often enough on this channel, but I think this deck is just so much fun. And like I touched on earlier, and as everyone who plays TCG knows, with the adventure engine on the horizon here in Master Duel, this deck is only going to get better, as this is definitely one of the decks that benefits from putting in that engine. So we are going to be looking forward to that. Yep, as always, I want to thank you for watching the video, especially all the way to the very end like this. If you feel like commenting or subscribing, that'd be awesome too. Or also, if you feel like checking out my Twitter or Twitch in the description, links can be found there. But, don't feel like you have to do any of that, because honestly, as long as you're just watching these videos and along for the ride with me, that is far more than enough for me. So, yeah, I don't think I have anything else to really cover with the deck at this time. We will definitely be coming back and visiting it for more games, then obviously again when the adventure engine comes out, but we'll revisit for duels, I'm pretty sure, before that happens. So alright, without further ado, this is Xlex signing out. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.